Hey, how's everybody doing? Hope you're having a really good day. I want to talk to you right now about a lot of different things that are going on in America and the nations around the world and in our culture, and a lot of things that I've been hearing from the Lord and a lot of things that different people have been speaking about. But there's three key words that I want to talk about tonight. The first one is the word reset. Now, a few months ago, you know that everybody was kind of caught off guard with the COVID-19 and kind of the quarantine and everything being essential, non-essential. And everybody kind of looked at a lot of things out of the lens of something different. Well, out of the word reset, I want you to think about this, that this was a time that a lot of people were able to really set back and to look at their life, look at their, number one, their relationship with God, look at their relationship with their spouse, with their kids, with their parents, and they really were able to set back and reset their values, really reset what was important in their life. And for a lot of people, they got to spend a lot more time trying to really figure out what they wanted to do with their life when this phase was over. And so the thing that the Lord has been speaking to me about is that this is a building season to make sure that you reset properly. There's a lot of times that, I'm not real technical on a lot of stuff. And if something's not working, I just unplug it. If my phone's not working, I just turn the power off and let it set for a minute. I reset it. And so there's a lot of times in life that we need to learn how to retreat back into a prayer getaway, a time that we spend extra time with God. That's why if you're married, you need to plan time to get away. My wife and I were coming up on our 20th anniversary. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time together in June. And then also in November, we're going to get away for about a week and we're going to spend time. What is this? A reset. What is a vacation? It is a reset. It is getting back to where you need to be. So I want you to really focus on what the Lord is doing in this day and in this hour, and that you have a good reset. The second thing that God spoke to me about tonight in prayer was the word raise, R-A-I-S-E, raise. And we were sitting here in prayer tonight. We're in our sanctuary, and the Lord started speaking to me about people need to raise their voice. Well, what is your voice? When you find your cause, you find your voice. And so some of your call, your voice may be preaching, it may be singing, it may be in the arts, it may be in the political arena, it may be in the athletic arena, it may be as a school teacher, it may be as a nurse, it may be as a mechanic. Whatever you are called to do, you need to raise your voice in this hour. Man, during the COVID-19, nurses and doctors, man, they raised their voice. These restaurants that had to adjust and do curbside service and to go orders, man, they raised their voice. There's a lot of people who were essential and working crazy hours, and first responders and just all the different things that people were doing. You got to find out what your voice is. And people ask me all the time, they're like, man, I don't know what I'm called to do. And I'll say, well, look at your gifts, talents, and abilities, find your passion, throw your life into it. And when you do that, you're going to find your voice. And this is a time and an hour that people need to raise their voice. You need to raise your gift to another level, to another dimension. This is the time that you need to fine tune your craft. What are you called to do? What has God put inside of your heart? You need to raise the bar. You need to listen. This is something I heard specifically tonight in prayer. This is so good. The Lord spoke to me and said, tell people to raise their expectation. I always raise my expectation on God. I raise expectation of everybody around me. I want to see everybody running to full capacity of what they're called to. And also, I want to raise the expectation I have for myself. I know what God has called me to do, and I want to raise the expectation of me. And so I want you to understand that you got more inside of you than you probably even know that you got. I want to encourage you to do that. The third thing that I want to talk about is the word release. Isn't it time that you release everything that's within you? Now we're going to go deep into this. We're going to talk about this in a lot of different facets. The first one is, if you have an offense towards anybody, it's time that you release it. If you have unforgiveness in your heart, it's time that you release it. Because when you release it, you make space for something else. You make space for God to fill that spot that you have held, that spot in your heart that you have held unforgiveness and rage or anger or something over. You may have not forgiven yourself. You may have some type of self-resentment, self-pity. You got to release that. When you release that and you start walking more in your identity that God has for you, you are going to be able, let's go back to the first, you're going to be able to reset, recalibrate the way that you think, raise the standard of what God has called you to, and release your voice. You got to release your sound. You know, whenever the Lord spoke to me about starting Roar Network in church, one thing God kept speaking to me about was everybody has a voice. Help people find their voice. And if they're going to make a noise, they might as well roar. So I want you to know that you got something inside of you, but you got to release it. You know, a lot of times around our house, I guess you could say if I'm a little edgy or something or a little uptight, my wife will be like, Jojo, my love, do you have a video inside of you that you need to release? My kids, y'all, my kids will say, Dad, you need to go on a prayer walk and release what you got. You need to release that prophetic flow and talk it out, or you need to go release that video. Go do a video, Dad. It's in you. But a lot of people have been hanging on to a dream. Some of you watching me right now, you're an entrepreneur and you have crazy great things inside of you. You got to release them. But a lot of times, before you can release them, before you can raise your standard, your expectation of yourself, you got to have a reset. So right now is the time that you can reset everything that's in your heart, reset everything that's in your life, raise your standard so you can release everything that's inside of you. My friends, I want to encourage you today. You got more God-given potential, God-given dreams, more God-given destiny inside of you than you could ever even imagine. And I want to encourage you today to go for everything God has put in your heart. But a lot of times people don't step into it because they fail to simply take the time to reset. If you will take the time to reset, spend that time with God, let the Holy Spirit encourage you, raise your self-worth. Hey, when God speaks to you, it will raise your self-worth so you can release what's inside of you. And I want to be known as a person who is full throttle, running on all cylinders and doing everything that God has called me to do, because I want to live my life at a high frequency. And one thing I always preach and tell people is be the best version of you. When you are the best version of you, you make everybody around you to become the best version of them. And then if you got a whole team, a whole church, a whole ministry, a whole business of people who are the best version of themselves, you're going to win in whatever you do. If you have a church, you're going to impact your city. If you have a business, man, you're going to own your industry in your region. You can do that. So I hope this encouraged you. Reset, raise, and release. I love you guys, and I hope that you are ready to make a roar for the Lord in this next season.